Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Office of the State Controller's Quick Bids training series. These videos are designed to help state agencies record and verify various accounting requirements within R-Stars based on guidance from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. I will be walking you through the capital asset disposal fact pattern for the example transactions we'll be posting into R-Stars. For our example capital asset, we have a capitalizable piece of equipment with a useful life of 7 years in the amount of $591,000. Additionally, there was an estimated salvage value of $20,000. We calculated an annual depreciation of $81,571.43 by subtracting the estimated salvage value from the equipment cost and then dividing by the useful life. The asset was sold almost 5 years later. Therefore, the asset was not fully depreciated as seen by multiplying the annual depreciation by the number of years in service, giving a total of $380,666.68 at the date of sale. We can see the calculation here. In 2019, we only had 8 months of depreciation since it was placed into service at the end of October. There were then 4 full years of depreciation recorded. The sale date was 7/10/25. Therefore, there was only 10 days of depreciation in the final month. Since a half month of depreciation would be $3,398.81, we deemed this amount to be immaterial and opted not to record it. This left an unexpired cost of $210,333.32 after 5 years. Finally, the asset was sold for $100,000. In the next few videos, we will walk you through the journal entries and how to enter them into R-Stars.
I will be making the needed entries to dispose of a capital asset that's partially depreciated in R-Stars. Our disposition information shows that we sold the item for $100,000 after about 5 years of depreciation. I've already mapped out my entries with the document numbers, T-codes, and accounting elements I will need to use. This information is shown at the right of my screen. Make sure first that you're logged into the correct user class in R-Stars to make the entry. I'm going to log in first under user class 19. And then once you're logged in, navigate to the 500 screen for the batch header. Enter your agency number. For this example, I'll be using agency 107, and then your batch date, or allow it to default to today's date. Enter your batch type, mine is 2, and then enter a batch number. Follow your agency's protocols for batch numbering. I'll be using batch number 126 for this entry. You can enter a batch count and then a batch amount, or you can leave it blank and allow it to default. I will enter 1 and $100,000 to show the sale of the capital asset. The batch edit mode is at 2, and I'm going to leave it there. And you can enter an effective date, or you can allow it to default to today's current date. I'm going to leave it blank and allow it to default. I will press F10 to enter my batch. Enter your effective date on the 504 screen. I will enter 7/10/24 to show the day we sold the asset, almost 5 years after purchase. Enter your document number. My document is CR 112401, and then my suffix is 001. Enter your T code. Mine's at 149 for this entry, and then I will enter the PCA 81906 and my agency object, which is 2330. You enter the amount, so the $100,000, and I will enter my document amount, Those are both the same for this entry. And then I will enter my description to record the sale proceeds. I have DP 112400. And at this point, I will press F4 to draw in any lookup fields. My lookup fields have been brought in and I don't see any errors. At this point, I'll press F10 to save my transaction. My transaction was successfully written. At this point, I will press F7 to go to the 520 screen and review my entry. And then I will press F6 to confirm that my batch is balanced. This batch is balanced and now ready for review and release. My next entry is a balance transaction where I will be using a T-code pair to remove the accumulated depreciation and remove the depreciation portion of the asset. In order to make this entry, I will need to switch to user class 27. Now that I'm logged into the correct user class, I will navigate to the 500 screen to enter my batch header. Again, I'm going to use agency 107, and you can enter the batch date here or allow it to default. I'm going to allow it to default. Batch type for this is 4, and then enter your batch number and follow your agency's protocols. You can enter a batch count. I will have 2 entries, and then my batch amount will be $761,333.36. I'm going to leave the batch edit mode to 2, and I'm going to leave the effective date blank and allow it to default. Enter your effective date, mine is 7/10/2024, and then you can enter your document number. Mine will be BT 112402, and I'll start with suffix 1. I will enter my transaction code, which is 573, and my PCA 99905, and I will enter the amount, which is $380,666.68. And then I will enter the document amount, which is 0 for this transaction. I will add my description to remove accumulated depreciation of the capital asset. And then I'm going to press F4 to draw in any lookup fields. This transaction to remove accumulated depreciation requires an OpenGL. So I will put 0869 here for accumulated depreciation of equipment and machinery. And now I'll press F4 again. I no longer have any errors, so I will press F10 to save my transaction. My transaction was successfully written. I will move on to my second entry. The suffix has already increased to 002, and I will use the same document number. My T-code for this is 574, the other half of the T-code pair, and my PCA is the same 99905. My total is $386.68. This entry, though, is to remove the depreciated portion of the asset. And my OpenGL for this entry will be 0815. So I will press F4 to bring in any lookup fields. I have no errors, so I will press F10 to save my transaction. The transaction was successfully written. At this point, I will press F7 to go to the 520 screen, and I could review my entry here. And then I will press F6 to confirm that my batch is balanced. My batch is balanced. This part of my entry is now ready for review and release, and I will move on to my final entry. I'm agency 107, and I will put the batch date and the batch type in. I'm just going to leave my batch date blank and allow it to default, and then I will enter my batch number, 128. I will enter the batch count, which is 1, and my batch amount, which is $210,333.32. I'm leaving the batch edit mode at 2, and I'll just allow the effective date to default. I'll press F10 to enter my batch. Enter your effective date. I need 7/10/24 for my date. And then I need to enter my document number, which will be JV 11/24/06/001. I will enter the transaction code 537 and the PCA 99905. I will enter the agency object of 2330, and then I will enter the amount of $210,333.32 and the document amount, which is the same for this entry. I need to enter an open GL, so I will put 0815 for this to remove the unexpired costs from the equipment and machinery within the government-wide reporting fund. And then at this point, I'm going to press F4 to bring in any lookup fields and confirm that there are no errors. I don't have any errors, so at this time, I will press F10 to save my transaction. My transaction was successfully written, and at this point, I can press F7 to review my entry. There's my entry, and then I can press F6 to make sure that my entry is balanced. My entry is balanced, so it is ready for review and release. This concludes my entries to record the disposition of the capital asset that has been partially depreciated within RStars.
We have generated the DAFR 6610 and 6620 reports to verify the information was recorded properly. The examples used in these videos were created within the acceptance region. Since OB does not include the acceptance region, we ordered the DAFR 6610 and 6620 reports. But under normal circumstances, the DAFR 6610 and 6620 reports within the OB repository will show the same information. These reports are used by your SARS analyst in conjunction with agency disclosures to evaluate if balances and activities are recorded correctly for proper reporting in the ACFR. Therefore, it's important to review either these DAFR reports or OB queries regularly and during the year-end closing process. Scrolling through the reports briefly, we can verify the information. Since we're confined by the restraints of the acceptance region, we made some edits to these DAFR reports in order to illustrate the outcome of the entries we posted. In the previous portion of our training, we walked you through recording a disposition of a capital asset within RStars. We see it here on the DAFR 6610 in the government-wide reporting fund in agency object 5150, which rolls up to comptroller object 5150, representing equipment and machinery. This balance is 0 in our example because there were no current year capital asset additions. The depreciation expense for the current year has a 0 balance because, as mentioned in the fact pattern, with a sale date of 7/10, we opted not to record a half month of depreciation due to materiality. If the sale occurred later in the year, we would expect there to be some depreciation recorded here. Additionally, we see the $210,333.32 of unexpired cost after 5 years recorded in the agency object 2330, which is a loss on disposition of assets as expected. Furthermore, in the governmental fund, we see the gain of $100,000 due to sales proceeds here. This is appropriate. Turning to the DAFR 6620 in the government-wide reporting fund in GLs 3074 and 3200, we see the $210,333.32 once again, as those were the transactions that occurred within the new fiscal year. Once again, it's worth noting that GLs 0815 and 0869 are both 0 as our transactions removed these balances. These are appropriate. Finally, in the governmental fund, we see the unreconciled deposit here of $100,000 from step 1 of our entries. These transactions have been recorded correctly.